Hello and welcome to the 6 Plus show, a podcast for your wargaming and 40k needs. Hobby talk, tactics, tournament reports, lore and much more. We have it all. Please welcome your host for the evening, Tom.
Welcome, ladies, gentlemen, and cute canoptech critters to that 6 plus. There's another plus as well show. It's got 3. So many pluses. I'm your host, Tom. I'm drinking this much wine to cope with the current state of my favourite game. And I am joined tonight with 2 of my friends. I have Chris. Chris, say hello. Chris is here. How's your day been, Chris?
It's good. I am drinking Baileys.
He's drinking Baileys.
So classy, isn't he?
The cultured one.
Mm-hmm. It's good to get the cream in. Got to get that cream
I
in
do
somewhere.
love a bit of cream in my mouth.
Yeah, very important. Okay, and then Lee. Hello, Lee.
Hello. I'm also drinking. I am going to shamelessly plug this Beavertown Gamma Ray. So if Beavertown are watching, I would happily take an endorsement.
Yes, belated sponsorship. That's how it works, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You'll see the exposure you're going to get from this video. That will then propel us forward into the next sponsorship.
Beavertown could definitely do with 90 or so views, I think, and that's going to...
You know what's a funny anecdote before we go any further? Originally, when we thought about first starting a YouTube, we were going to have one called Beer Hammer. And it was going to be, it would have a different beer every time, and that was going to be the hook. But I think we decided that it's hard enough to play the game coherently sober, and nobody wanted to watch sort of 2 guys absolutely plastered and push models around in the dark. So we didn't do it.
It was your Ben, wasn't it?
So here's my take. Every time you spend a command point, you shot.
I like that. I played a guy
because that's about 9 shots each over a game. You get more as well. You'd want to go in with as few as you possibly could.
Regen CP anymore. You said you don't want it.
No, you don't.
I actually played a guy at the Twisted Warp event a few weeks ago, and he said that in his club, if you reroll a die into the same die, so you reroll a 1 into a 1, you had to have a shot. That was the in-house club rule.
It's a good system.
It's a good
system. It should put you off doing it because it's terrible and no one should do it.
It shouldn't happen. You shouldn't do it. It's terrible. It's a bad use of your resources. But let's not give away another just the tip that we can do.
That's the tip today, guys.
Don't reroll. Don't reroll ones. There'll be ones again. It's just the way it is. So today we are going to do 2 things, really. Primarily, we're going to talk about a time that we've had because we all went to War of the Dark Prince, which is a local Twisted Dice event. I think it was 1 person shy of being a GT, but it was nearly GT size.
No, what you mean is 1 person shy of internet fame.
The little GT that couldn't. Yeah, it's all right. I'm not hung up on that at all. It's fine. I'll get over it. It's fine. Wings couldn't even break his own rules to get his own listing.
Yeah, that's true.
That would have been outrageous, but there we are. Which was down in the Legion in Leighton Buzzards. It's an event we've been to before. So what we'll do is a couple of minutes, we'll just recap what we each took and why we took it. Then we'll run through our games in a quick, snappy fashion, and then we're going to give the state of the game both barrels to finish up, because I think that's how we're feeling. We're feeling like we might set some things to rights from our pedestal and start.
I want a soapbox.
See what can be done. We've got a soapbox. You're all ready and waiting. And we'll give some shout outs to our various wonderful opponents as well over the course of that. So let's start with you, Lee. Tell us what you took and why you took it.
So I took a very similar list to the RTT a little while ago, which was my Disciples of Be'lakor list. So the long and short of it was obviously Be'lakor, a Changecaster, a Herald of Slanesh, 29 pink, 29 pink horrors, 2 squads of 3 Nurglings, 27 bloodletters, 20 more bloodletters, both with banners of blood, which I'll come on to in one of the games because they're so much fun. 9 Flamers of Tzeentch, 4 Flamers of Tzeentch, 5 Furies. That was a terrible mistake, and I'll explain that later as well. I think that was the meat. Oh, and some Fiends. And then what I had again was 85-ish points of Summoning Reserve, which I had last time I took the list. I had way more than that. I had almost 200 points worth. That was a complete waste. I learned that from the RTT, but having that was predominantly for splitting, and it was really helpful actually. So yeah, we'll come on to that.
Very nice. And what is your rationale? Why are you enjoying Disciples of Be'lakor so much?
I like Disciples of Be'lakor for two reasons, really. One is I love Be'lakor. If you've watched the last episode, you'd know that. And if you haven't, then you should, because it's great.
Go and watch the last one where Lee discusses Be'lakor in our I Fought the Law and the Law Won segment.
And you'll see a tremendous Photoshop in that one as well. So
if it isn't timestamped, you'll just have to listen to the whole thing. That's fine as well.
And the other thing is, competitively, firstly, I don't ever use my demons, so it's actually something different. But I actually think the benefits that you get are actually what you're seeing in lots of other armies now that are making them good. So what makes the Harlequins like to build quite good is the sort of can't be hit on anything else at 4s, or you're -1 and you can't reroll, and you actually get those benefits. And it's very anti-meta in that sense, because it puts Tau hitting on 5s, 4s at best with no rerolls. It has enough bodies that it can clog up the more elite armies out there. And it's still quite good at playing the mission. I mean, the data sheets themselves are weak, but actually they combine into this really annoying roadblock that just stands in the way, which is a really different way of playing than what I'm used to. So I'm learning a lot about placement and focusing on scoring points and not really killing stuff, because, to be honest, it doesn't do that.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah, no, I think they've got a lot of play, and I think they do a lot of things that give them a lot of play in the missions. And as you say, counter a lot of what's good and scary out there right now. And also, I think with demons, people underestimate a little bit as well. People don't fully appreciate.
I think the book is so old, but I said to a few of my opponents throughout, the book is so old, it's become relevant again, because some of the rules that are in it you would never see now. You would never. Something like the Forbidden Gem, which is the one that just sort of turns something off for a phase. I'm like, you just wouldn't get that now.
No.
Or maybe you will. Maybe when the book comes, we'll get it again. But
I'm super excited about demons. I think it'll be epic. What we want is plug-in patrols like Harlequins, right?
I think that's going to be the way.
Mono god plug-in patrols for all the different Chaos Space Marine factions, or multi.
But because it's Chaos Space Marines, we won't get it.
Maybe not.
And just
you'll have your 2 wounds, because having 2 wounds and power armor is so fucking useful that Marines literally don't exist.
The most chaos thing ever, the most Chaos Space Marines thing ever, is to get 2 wounds now when they're not relevant anymore. Wait 586 days and counting, and then get them probably at like 650 days, and then them to be completely worthless.
Yeah, that is
long live the soul.
That is them. Right. So we'll move on. Chris.
I Drake, calm myself down.
Speaking of chaos, long-time chaos player, Chris.
Yep.
Tell us what you took and why you took it.
I took Thousand Suns because YouTube people are not nice.
So did you put it up for a vote again?
Yeah, so I put it up for a vote just because, these events aren't the biggest. I've been playing Custodes last few events, fancied to change, so I just put up to a vote. There were different options there. Obviously, there was one out there option, which was playing Lee's Thousand Suns, which I hadn't taken before.
You'd never even played them before, let alone take
I never played them before. I played against them.
To play.
So that won the vote. So I ended up taking those bad boys. My list was 20 Terminators, so 2 blobs of 10, which are good, and in a good player's hands of Thousand Suns, I'm sure would do a lot of work. Yeah. I took 10 rubrics, I then took 2 5-man rubrics, took some characters. I took 3 Spawn and 3 Zangor Enlightened to run on a objective first turn and then die. And that was the list, because you don't get very much for Thousand Suns.
You really don't get very much for Thousand Suns, no.
It was kind of nice for me as a vindication for you to realise what I've been dealing with all this time.
Don't give anything away. For all we know, Chris won this event.
Spoiler alert, I don't.
Obviously, outside of the fact that the internet made you take it,
yep.
What was the rationale with how you set up the list? What were you looking to do?
Apparently, according to the internet, Terminators are good.
Terminators are good.
So the more Terminators you take, the better the list.
So more of them is good.
I think Lee should take 30 next time, because that is the only way you'll ever do well. But
get yourself a full James list.
It's like 450 points for 10 Terminators.
It's quite a lot of points.
It's quite a lot of points. You could certainly, at various points over the weekend, you could certainly see the oomph. And obviously, as we all know, Terminators have so much firepower And they can be durable.
When they get going, they're amazing.
And if you have terrain which you can hide behind and not be seen on, then you might be able to play them. But if the terrain's not quite up to being able to hide, then you're going to struggle, I think.
Yeah.
As is always the way with Thousand Suns.
Yeah, very much so. Cool. And in terms of the overall event, in terms of location and setup and everything else, how did you guys find it?
Standard Legion.
Yeah, we've been there a few times.
Yeah.
Again, the only thing that ever really mars it a little bit is the parking situation. So there's a little tiny car park outside that you can use on the Sunday, but otherwise there's this multi-story next door. The event typically goes on till 7:00, but it actually shutters down at 5:00 on a Sunday. So there's this mad panic for everybody at sort of 4:30, like, where am I going to put my car? So I think there needs to be a solution to that. And that's, I mean, they're not going to be able to car park, but the solution to that is going to be as simple as hopefully finding some other places and sort of recommending, because they're local to the area, they might know a bit more. I did hear some people talking about other options. So
Yeah, and I think that's fair. I think I say the actual venue itself is nice and easy, and it's a familiar setup. It's quite obviously it's a home club turf for you and Mealy. So I think actually I find mentally I find it very relaxing to have a familiar environment and so many familiar faces. And actually, I think I play better in that setting because there's less other things you're thinking about. And I did want to give a shout out to Darren, because Darren cooked everyone food both days.
Did.
Darren got in the kitchen, cooked up burgers, cooked up lovely wraps, and really really put on a spread for everybody. And that was really nice as well. That was a nice touch, I thought. And I thought he was TO'd well, and there was a good attitude.
Yeah, it's a nice vibe, isn't there? It's just relaxed Warhammer.
And
that's what see any major issues. That's always nice.
No, exactly.
And again, at the events, you don't normally have major issues there because it's a different vibe, like you say.
There were no loaded dice or anything like that. So that's nice.
No, that was discovered.
So that we know about, yeah.
Certainly all of mine came home with me to find, so that was all right. Cool, wonderful. Well, I'll run through my filth to finish up. I took Harlequins, and I took Harlequins because I wanted to win lots of games, because I think Harlequins were very good. I read the rules for Harlequins, and I was like, God, you want to play those soon? Because soon everyone will be playing them, and you won't want to play them. So you want to run them now, get in there, knock some heads, and take advantage of a frankly absolutely fucked rule set. Because it feels like I'd hedged my bets, and I was gambling that Craft Wars would be broken out the gate so I could have some fun with Harlequins. So I'd started building up my Harlequins in the months before the Eldar book came out. And unfortunately, it's looking like it might be the other way around. It's looking like Craft Worlds might be fine and Harlequins look a little bit busted. But I was also thinking about Tau in particular, and to a lesser extent Custodes, because I think light Harlequins are good against those because they're hard for them to shoot. And so I had 5 troops in Star Weavers. I had double fusion, double neuro disruptors. I was running the light Sadath, so advance and shoot with no penalty. 1s, 2s, and 3s always miss from more than 12 away. I had a Shadow Seer, I had a Troop Master. Troop Master was tooled up to always hit with the storied sword and wound things on 2s, and he had a ton of attacks. And he could advance D3 plus 3 and charge plus 6.
Gross.
Which is very nice indeed. People go, I've reduced your charge by 2. I was like, well, I'm only getting a plus 4 then. That's absolutely fine. I had a solitaire, and then I had 3 Death Jesters because I wanted to run loads of characters, because I like running loads of characters. That's my favourite way to play the game. And I had a couple of really tooled up Death Jesters with cool upgrades to punk people, and 1 bare bones one. Then I had 2 little pairs of bikers and 4. Now, this is a vehicle you guys might not have heard of. There's a vehicle called a Void Weaver that the Harlequins have.
Oh, explain that to me in detail.
That's what
I don't think you're not going to see them around. Because mine were, frankly underwhelming, and I think the last thing anyone needs is 5 more. But they have a prismatic cannon on the top that's pretty good, and they have a bunch of shuriken cannons as well. And with pure Harlequins, all the rerolls and mechanics like that, you can make them very, very reliable at punking basically whatever you want to punk with them. And so that was the list. I don't think it's particularly optimized, but I think it does what I like to do very well, which is run screaming in and brutalize things and steal things and make trouble. So it was a decent list. I was quite happy with it. I'd taken a sort of shopping list of all the characters. And I was, as I say, we didn't actually have any data on how Harlequins were at that stage, but my gut instinct reading the rules was like, this is going to absolutely harm people in quite a serious way.
You've been on the block long enough. You know.
You know when you're looking at rules and you're like, because I'd done some Dracaria Harlequin suit when in the run up to the book, and I was thinking maybe I'll do that with it, depending how it is. And you're reading the rules and like, no, you just want this on its own. You just want it to just go and do its thing because it's very good at what it does. So that was me as well. So I was on a horrible, filthy meta hunt.
Love the honesty.
Yeah, well, I think that kind of is, very much was in this instance. We didn't know it was going to be great, but it was a pretty good bet, I think. And subsequent data has borne us out on that. So let's talk about round one. Round one is always an exciting time at an event. You're hoping and praying that you've got someone confused and new who doesn't have a good list, or you get drawn into some absolute killer. Could go either way. What did you guys get? Let's start with you, Chris. What were you drawn into and how did it go?
Well, in this case, I was that confused person.
You were.
I'd spent the week reading the rules, etc. I'd built my list with Lee's help. I'd committed all of the spells to memory. I knew what they cast on, and you had what? Walked up to the table against Alex, who I believe goes to your club.
Alex Chancellor, so shout out to Alex Chancellor, who's a wonderful chap and wonderful player.
And he was running orcs, and he had lots of shooting. Now, in my experience against Thousand Suns, they're really annoying with the 1 damage because obviously they've reduced the... you would get a better save against 1 damage weaponry. Obviously, the orcs were all 2 and 3 damage weaponry, so that wasn't the best start.
Real hard.
He had a load of vehicles, and I didn't have much ability to take out vehicles, really. Terminator shooting is very good. If you can put all of it into like one thing, you will kill a vehicle or 2. The board was an interesting one. It was just a load of Eldar signs and dense cover.
I played on that one.
Yeah. I was like, okay, well, there's lots of dents here. That could be good against orcs. And, I'll just deploy nice and safe. All will be fine. And then what happened was he got first turn, did a little bit, not much. And then it got to my turn, and I essentially just forgot how to play Warhammer. We've had it before when I played Tom, and I used the Space Marines, which I've never used. Yeah. It's weird. Like, you go from being very confident in all the intricate details of the game and your army to what are the phases again? And I just remember, I was like, right, well, I don't really need to do anything my first turn because he'd chosen a lot of aggressive stuff. I'd chosen quite defensive things. So I was like, I just set some objectives, and I was like, don't really need to cast any powers. He was like, have you got any like 4-up Invan or -1 to hit powers? I was like, yeah. He was like, because just remember, I can see all of your units out here in the open. And I was literally just thinking, oh, well, there are trees there. That blocks all line of sight. It was just these weird things where, just the brain just completely malfunctioned. So essentially the way that game went was I moved slightly forward, died, and then I moved and then I kind of stayed still and then died some more. And I died completely on turn 4.
Is it fair to say that like flat 3 damage was doing for you in that situation?
Yeah, I mean, there was...
It'll do that.
There was just things like, oh, you're hitting me on 6s. Oh, we'll be fine. Oh, you've hit 6 times. Oh, you've wounded 6 times. Oh, I failed 6 4-up Invans. Oh, that's 6 Terminators dead. And it's just like things like that, which obviously really didn't help. But yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. Obviously, first game, it was a pretty horrible matchup, and I was pretty clueless. So I could just about do the basics. I was like, what powers are where? I knew them all, but it was just, as soon as you get in that pressure environment, it just completely went. And the icing on the cake was Araman being charged by a vehicle which has somehow survived. He took a load of mortal wounds. He had 1 wound left on my fight back. No, my fight back, I left it on 1 wound. I'm like, I'll do what Lee always does. I'll just smite myself out of trouble. My vehicle explodes, kills Araman.
That's so
and
good. As
a long-time hater of Araman, obviously I was slightly happy.
Yes.
But in this particular situation, I wasn't. So no, it was a well-deserved 95-54 point victory to Alex.
Very well done, Alex.
I got off to a rather rocky start with the Thousand Suns.
It's a rough start. A chastening landing.
Yes. I've got a great list here. 1,000 suns. How hard can it be? Was not what happened. So.
And Lee, how about yourself? What was your game one?
Just going to pause. I'm going to get Lily saying she's being really annoying. So bear with.
Oh, no worries. You
can probably hear.
I'll talk about my game one, and then you can slot back in and join us after that. So my game one was against Black Templars. It was against a lad called Adam. And I think it was Adam's second event, so this was a very round one kind of game. And Adam was an absolute gent, really lovely guy. We had a lot of fun with it, but Black Templars can't lay a glove on Harlequins, can't get to them. No. Don't have any way of getting to them. He had a couple of Invictors, and I think he probably needed to gamble on turn one with them right in my lands to at least give me something to be worried about. But A, that's not good strategy, and so I can totally understand why he didn't do that. And B, it's not what he did. So the Invictors were quite a way off. So he had a couple of Invictors which I picked off. There were some Eradicators which I stayed away from until it was time to sort of sort them out. And then it was lots of quite slow-moving, tough infantry that I just sort of... I think it was the 6 objective mission, wasn't it? One of the ones... Yeah,
Hammer and Anvil.
Hammer and Anvil, where I could essentially just sort of slalom around, staying out of harm's way, whilst gunning him to death with shuriken cannons, which at damage 2 are just horrific now. Yeah. Sheer weight of shuriken cannons flying in, just chopping up Marines left, right, and centre. So Adam was a really good sport and took it very well. But that was a mismatch in terms of armies, and the Harlequins got us off to a stonking 154 or 155 win. So that's when we knew we had something strong on our hands. We were off to a flyer. So, Lee, tell us about your game one.
I'm back, yes. So I played a lovely chap called Adam Wallace, so shout out to Adam, local guy to me, so hopefully get some more games in against him. Nice. He was running Grey Knights, a fairly typical Grey Knights list in that it was sort of the 3 Dread Knights, the Grandmaster, and then some strikes and some interceptors, basically. Obviously, I had... sorry, I wasn't running the 1,000 Suns, but I'm used to playing 1,000 Suns into them. So I know how killer that matchup is. And I was like, I don't really know how this one's going to go. I basically picked secondaries that allowed me to just control using my weight of numbers to do that. It was a really close game that ended up just about clinching it. Just looking at it now, it was 89-85. So yeah, really, really.
Oh wow,
really
nice.
Close. So yeah, it's a good game. And like I said, we're trying to arrange a couple more games, so that would be good.
Yeah, that'd be very nice. Anyone that runs you that close sounds like someone worth playing as well. So
yeah, exactly.
Have to get in touch with them. Okay, fantastic. So that's our round one. Chris has had a rough landing. We've got off to winning starts. Then go into round two. Round two can often be a bit like round one because it's still playing field's still leveling out. Pairings are still random at this stage. A lot, this event, like many now, was doing random pairings for the first 3 days. How do you guys feel about it, by the way? Because I don't like it very much.
I feel like it gives a greater range for players who are not doing well to feel bad about their time.
I 100% agree. Because so an example of this, most egregious example of this, the chap I was paired into, Adam, had lost his first game.
Yeah,
but because of odd numbers, was paired into Harlequins, and a player who'd won 100 in his first game. Which I think is just catastrophic failure of the matchup system. I know it's supposed to stop submarining, and I understand that. And submarining,
I think this is the
shitty behaviour.
Symptom of submarining.
Yeah,
is not as bad as this.
I think that's right. I think I agree. I think I would rather not have situations where players like Adam are getting put into stuff that he shouldn't be getting put into.
Yeah,
because I think ultimately events already struggle to help those kinds of players. And it's a bit like player place terrain. It's like it just helps a bunch of people who don't need help, and hurts the ones that do. Anyway, so my game with Adam played Necrons. Adam had a bit of a mare because he'd left 3 Scorpec Lords, 3 Scorpec Destroyers at home, so he was down a few points as well to compound the problem. He did manage to get them for day 2, so that was good. So he was running Necrons. He was 90 points down. We were playing on a beautiful green Aliens versus Predator jungle type board, so that was really cool. Yeah, the Harlequins looked good. The Necrons looked good. And Adam came forward and did some stuff, and then I flew forward and shot the absolute living crap out of Adam. And it was very clear from my turn 1 that this was going to be a very tough game and an uphill struggle for him. Now, Adam fought back pretty well. He had the Nightbringer, and the Nightbringer swung around, chopping up elves wherever he found them. He had some immortals down the flank that just would not die. That Necron 5-up getting back up was coming up trumps, and so he started really trying to spite me, and we had a lot of fun. It was actually, in terms of the attitude, one of the most fun games of 40k I've had in a long time. So shout out to Adam.
Great,
I think every event in the recent times I've had in a game like that where it's against someone who hasn't brought something as tuned up, and they're so nice and it's so fun, and you're like, this is actually much more what the game should actually be about in a great many ways. So that game really stayed with me. So thank you very much, Adam. That was an awesome game. And the Harlequins did take that through. Just again, sheer weight of damage 2 shots, which again the Necrons just didn't have ways of weathering and didn't have ways of reaching and punching back. It didn't help that his destroyers couldn't hit a barn door with a banjo, but when you're firing at Harlequins, that's often the way.
It reduces everybody to that.
So exactly. It makes everyone look a bit inaccurate at times. So that was my game too. It's quite a comfortable win. So let's talk about yours, Lee. How did you get on?
Well, I went into so I won my first game, close game. Went into the Battle of the Lees. So I played Emperor's Children. And I played Lee.
So this is Lee Churchwood, is it?
That's right. So Lee and I played back in Leicester. Yeah. That's when I was running my Thousand Suns. I managed a very squeaky, narrow victory in that game. In this game, he had changed his list. So he was sort of built around the Volkites before, and a number of hard-hitting sort of blocks of Terminators and Noise Marines, and he loves his Dreadclaws. And since then, his list has changed.
List. Yeah.
And I think it's better. I think it's much better.
I agree.
Out go the Contemptors. In come even more Terminators. So it's got 3. I think it was 29 Terminators.
Yes, I believe it is.
One squad full Melter. Everyone else.
Just bolters.
Just bolters. And then also I think he had Chosen with Lightning Claws as well.
There was a 10 of Chosen coming out of Drop Pod, yeah.
But what I loved about it was there was no filler in that list. It was all...
Not even a bit.
He knows that if it's out in the open, it's fragile, so he's got great delivery mechanisms for it. And obviously as Emperor's Children, he can honour the Prince and turn his basically guarantee his charge. He's got the Noise Marines for sort of just obliterating all the chaff, or even something better, actually. And yeah, he played it well. Ultimately, I did lose. I kept it tight. It was a 7-point loss. So it ended 77-70 to him. I made one really crucial mistake that I don't know how much it would have cost me, but what I'd done was I'd set up my fiends behind a completely obscuring ruin. And then and they're beasts, so they can pass through that. And then on the other side, he had his 10 Noise Marines. So I had 2 fiends ready to go in there and just trap them so they couldn't shoot for a turn. Line them up and just forgot to make the charge. Just didn't do it. Didn't do it. Realised later in the fight phase, basically.
That's quite a substantial problem, though.
Yeah. Because firstly, I would have killed
double shooting Noise Marines isn't what you want happening. If you can avoid, if you had the power to make it not happen. The difference is then that
they're shooting their pistols into fiends in close combat. And I can live with that. So yeah, I was gutted about that. I haven't worked it out. That might have been a 7-point swing. I don't know.
Yeah, what I would say is a bunch of Emperor's Children guys fighting is no joke. Even Noise Marines, like they might just batter the fiends.
Yeah.
Is it 8 wounds to get through? Probably not 8 wounds. Elves they'll batter, but maybe not the fiends. That's very unfortunate.
But it was a great game. Again, so we're 1-1 now. So look forward to the grand finale in the LGT final.
The very final game, the final game. That a new Chaos Space Marine book will be out then, so you can fight as equals.
We'll both use that.
Lee is an absolute hero with the Chaos Space Marines, and is doing quite remarkable work with them. There's a tiny little nucleus of Emperor's Children players in America that sort of blog and keep up, and I think Lee is very heavily involved in that circuit.
Yeah.
It shows because his lists are just horrifically violent and dangerous. I love it. So good.
I was looking at it like, I love this list. I love what you've got here.
I hate him. Every game with him is just exhausting. Okay. And then Chris, yourself, how was your game too?
So I obviously was coming off the back of a loss, and I feel like I learned a lot in that game. I think Alex probably at some point thought I was brand new to Warhammer. Like he was explaining some of the core rules to me.
He's a good teacher, Alex. I always learn when I play him.
No, I do know that fly goes over terrain. I know I'm not giving that impression right now, but I do know that. but not in the charge phase. Yes, I know.
I
Alex,
love that you've just given your impression of yourself as someone who hasn't got an absolute
Yeah.
clue what's going on.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was
your
like, brilliant.
opponent is reaching for the book to explain look out, sir, to you. Like, oh, Jesus.
Yeah, I was like, oh. So I then played. I played Adam, who you played in round 1, Tom. I played into
yes.
Black Templars.
The Black Templars, yes.
Yeah, and I felt obviously like I feel like I should win this game. Like looking at the list, and it was an interesting game. I was able to kind of just deal with the threats as they came. I was able to stay away from, like the Eradicators, 5 Eradicators. That's going to put a lot of hurt out, but they haven't got the
That
biggest
is a brutal block.
It was interesting, like there was a moment where he stuck all his flame aggressors on the middle objective. I put all my fully buffed Terminators out. I left 1 on 1 wound, and that was like one of those little swing points. And there's those little things you're like, oh, but actually overall it was a reasonably comfortable game. As you said, like Adam was a joy to play. He was just really nice and chilled, and things didn't go his way. His Terminators failed to charge and then just all got obliterated. He very, very rarely made any of his 5 up against mortals, like those sorts of things. So
yeah,
I ended up winning 96-55. So I was off and running. Yeah. So that was
the Black Templars, and this is something I chatted about with him. It's just the lack of delivery for them is a bit
no
much.
advance to charge. No,
for a melee
yeah.
army, it just feels like that's the one thing where they could at least do with having an advance and charge somewhere on something.
Let's talk to Danny about Blood Angels next, shall we?
Hey, Danny doesn't play Blood Angels anymore. He plays Ulthway now. Danny is an Ulthway player. My army are safe in Danny's care at the moment. So that was round 2. So is that all of us on a win round 2? No. So Leah's Ross to Lee. So
Chris
my memory, and this is the end of the day now, obviously a bit knackered after 2 games. And I remember we were chatting with Lee Churchwood at that point. We were sat around chatting. And Lee was saying he didn't want to draw the Filthy Harlequins. And then the pairings for our next game went up, and I had Lee, and Lee had the Filthy Harlequins, and I was drawn with the Emperor's Children. And so I'd just seen that he'd beaten you. That's never a good sign. Anyone that beats you gets me quite concerned quite quickly. I've played Lee before, and I'd got away with one then with Drakari. And this was an absolutely brutal game. And essentially, Lee got a first turn, got the show rolling with all of the Terminators and Chosen and other things dropping down, pinned me really well into my deployment zone and made it very hard. And this was partly my own fault because I'd chosen, I guess, what you could term optimistic secondaries, right? Stuff that wanted me to get out and get into his zone and attack him and put pressure on him, which if I'd gone first, I might have been able to do better, but actually maybe not. It's not easy to know. And as a result, Lee racked up a really nice lead early on and killed me off really, really well. I think the sheer volume of shots and the buffs to wound, especially. Bolters love Harlequins. Bolters don't give a shit.
I felt. I was looking at when I played, like, you just love me because I'm all T3 bodies. You just love
they don't
all
care.
your bolters. You love
anything without actual armor. They don't care. And so, he was like, I can fire both profiles because I'm -1 to hit anyway. It doesn't matter. I didn't hit with the re-rolling to wound on it and pluses to wounds and stuff that Emperor's Children have. Harlequins have no way of turning that off, right? They turn the hit rolls off and they make the hits harder, but if anything that hits that wounds well will cause them trouble.
1 CP veterans is OP.
Yeah, honestly.
It's the only thing keeping you in the game, I think.
Utterly brutal. And we had some fun moments. I think it was the Solitaire yeeted in and killed all the Noise Marines, which was good fun. My Death Jesters were just assassinating all his characters. He had a Smash Lord with a hammer who just got gunned down by a Death Jester without getting to do much. So I was finding some fun in pettily sniping characters without managing to actually impact the flow of the game particularly. And that one finished 67-58 to Lee, and he'd put me well and truly under the cosh. It was a close game, and it was one of those ones where I think actually I tried to keep pressure on him all game by flying stuff over turns 2 and 3, and I was sort of dealing with stuff and killing it off in my own zone, but also trying to pressure him. And actually what I needed to do was say, for a couple of turns, you have it. I can't deal with it. I'm going to kill the shit out of everything you're sending, then I'm going to come for you turns 4, 5. And I should have done that. I needed to play a longer game. I think that's where overconfidence, that's where new books can come in. You're like, well, I've got all this stuff, it's really quick, I can go and get him. But actually, I'm on the defensive here. I need to sort this out and not keep giving him ways back in to the back lines. And if I'd done that better, I might have had a best chance of turning it with the final turn. But yeah, great match, learned a lot. And Lee is just a fantastic opponent and a really solid player. So well done to Lee. It was a thoroughly deserved win. And he went on to beat Craft Worlds as well later on in the event as well. He had a really good run before the final couple of games, and it looked at one stage like he might go all the way. So bad luck to Lee for not quite realising the dream, but hopefully you got some good stories to tell the Emperor's Children fan base about how you wrecked all the elves and ate our souls. Very nice. And so round 3, let's start with you, Chris. What did you have?
I had all Thousand Sons' favourite opponent, Death Guard, because obviously we've got the whole Magnus Morty thing going on there.
Yes.
Or did you or your opponent have either of those two?
We did not.
No. Because they suck.
Yeah.
Nah, Morty's fine. He's great.
Morty's not too bad. Magnus does suck. So no. Rob, really nice guy, from the same team as Adam, actually, within Wargaming. Maybe.
Yeah, they travelled together, hadn't they?
Yeah. And he had very quickly identified that it wasn't the best matchup for him. You know, he didn't have a huge amount of shooting. He'd kind of invested 600 points in his To the Last units, like 2 5-man Blight Lords and something else. And it was Data Scry Salvage. He got first turn, which he didn't want, and just clung to one edge, and I just moved straight down the middle of the board and shot away stuff, and just was basically I had better secondaries than him. Was what it came down to. I also denied him primary for the first 2 turns. Yeah, and after that, all he could do was just play. And we were talking like towards the end. It was one of those things where he chose him to the last, and if we're playing in a team event, I would be gunning for those to the last. But in reality, in this sort of event, it does not matter what he scores in this game. So it meant that I could just quite easily play to my objectives, have no interest in his side of the board, really. Do what I needed to do to get Wrath of Magnus, twice Terminators unloaded into a Plague Burst Crawler, twice left it on 1 wound. That's still pretty impressive that those guys can put out so much fire. That you can take down That
is nuts that you can do that with Bolter.
And it also is perfect because it means next turn you can just do a smite, kill it, and then that's your Wrath of Magnus. So it worked out quite nicely like that. But no, he knew it was hard and he just tried to maximise his score. So it finished 96-64.
Very nice.
But yeah, it was always going to be a really hard game for him.
Yeah, it's a tough matchup for Death Guard, that one. Very hard, but very well played. And Lee, how about yourself for game 3?
Yeah, so final of the game of the day, I played a lovely guy called Joe. Could not ask for a nicer guy. I'd not played him before, but I had seen him at similar events, so he must have been sort of at other Twisted events before, I think. He was running Necrons, painted in a sort of a ghostly theme. His list was quite interesting in that it had lots of good stuff in it. And this was this Data Scry Salvage? That was this mission.
Yeah.
But
yes, it was.
What he didn't have was a single OBSEC body. So
he was no OBSEC Necrons. There we go.
Yeah, so it's unusual.
Was he Novok? Was he going melee?
Yeah, yes. He was Novok. We had like 3 Doomsday arcs.
That's right. Yeah, so it was. He normally runs the classic. What is it? Expansion.
Everything is OBSEC. Yeah. Eternal Conquerors or something.
He's like, I'm bored of that, so I'm going to do something different. In this game, it didn't work. What my list is designed to do is, as I hinted at the beginning, is stand in the places that annoy people and not do much else. And it's very, very good at that. The reasons I mentioned the Banner of Blood, for instance, the Bloodletters are probably the most important unit in this whole list. Because what they do is turn 1, I teleport a unit in, I charge it 3d6 + 1, and I steal your objectives. Ideally 2 of them, because I'm OBSEC. And now I do that again in turn 2 with my second lot if you haven't killed them, if you've killed the first lot. And then by turn 3, my pink horrors are there splitting onto them again. And that's exactly what happened in this game. So I don't think Joe's got any primary in this game. And as a result,
I had 2, hold 3. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, so you got a whole more.
That hurt me on ours as well.
And then there was one really interesting moment where his race came over and they got into something and they killed whatever they touched. He had a big squad of, I think it's 9, whatever the maximum race is.
6.
And I was 6. Okay, I was like, well, I don't really like that, so I put all my 9 flamers in. And I popped the mortal wound strat, so it does mortals on 6s. And this is what I'm saying about the book being so old. So that's not capped.
No, it's not.
So I think I got 34 hits through. I got 10 mortal wounds. So just absolutely obliterated
That's race.
That is very naughty.
And they've got to make the saves on top of it, so they've just got completely one-shotted.
Yeah, that's hilarious though.
So it ended 95-47. So I guess there might have been some. Let me have a look. There might have been some primary in that actually. Just towards the end, a little bit in the final turn. But lovely opponent and a brilliant way to end the first day because someone like I have a bit of a laugh with throughout the game, and that's what I'm about. Yeah,
no, definitely. No, and that was nice. And that was, again, the nice thing about it being local was that we were then able to all go and get some rest and recuperate, right? It was, having done a lot of socialising at events lately, we were all sort of like, should we just all go to sleep? And just,
go a little early night,
just go and have a little lie down. And that was actually really good.
I love
came along very refreshed.
Yeah.
I'm massively sold. I think at the moment, having done a lot of sort of bigger events and travelling since we could get out later last year, now it's like, can probably do that a bit less. And
I feel the same way.
Just wind it in and tick away at local things and then see a bit later in the year. But so that was us. That's our day 1, and so that's all of us 2-1, isn't it?
All of us 2-1.
All of us 2-1. How are you all feeling in terms of your overall event at this stage?
I'm feeling pleased.
Yeah, you're in a good spot.
It's a tough list to play, so I've got like a sore back and my legs hurt and stuff. And I'm old. Which doesn't help. But I mean, I didn't set myself a goal in terms of a performance objective in terms of winning. And funnily enough, my first opponent did ask me if I had one. And I sort of mentioned that we'd discussed that before on the podcast, and sort of it wasn't the right way.
It's dangerous to have it. I think it's dangerous to have it.
But with that in mind, to have won 2 games, I was very happy.
Yeah.
Because it's the kind of game that if I play well, I feel like I can win most matchups, but if I play badly, I can happily lose any as well.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, and same for me, really. Obviously, no real expectations at all, apart from the fact that I know that I'm taking a list that is probably actually pretty good in the hands of like experienced players of Thousand Suns. But at the same time, it is still Thousand Suns. And you have to be a very good player. And, what was very clear to me early on was just actually this was going to be a lot more hard work than I thought it would be. It's just such a completely different play style. And so it was just kind of, it was quite draining, I guess.
You're learning it for the first time, and those data sheets just don't do it on their own. You have to have the combos of everything else.
Precisely, and that was probably the most obvious thing. Was kind of like the synergies and having everything in the right place, and even just deploying it in the right place so you can. And you kind of, I think what I learned was with Thousands, and you have to be seeing the game 2-3 turns in a row and being able to know that where are you going to move for the next few turns so that you can keeping those buffs up and everything in range and that sort of thing. And that was obviously something I had no chance of being able to do realistically. So I'd won the 2 games that I felt like I should win. I lost the game I felt I could lose. So that was kind of, I was happy with how it had gone.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah. I think it's always a good place to be at, isn't it? And I think it was, for me, it was definitely good to have the humbling at the hands of the Emperor's Children, because I've had a couple of games where you're sort of flying, and I think it's important. Actually, it's quite good to hit a very hard opponent at an early stage of the event, and hitting a loss was good because that kind of woke me up to thinking, well, I need to be very focused and not just assume this is going to do anything at any stage, and remember that you can still make mistakes and still get killed off hard. So that was a good sharpener, I think, in terms of the overall thrust of the event as well.
That's what I found with Admech. When I was playing Admech, you'd play some games, you're like, I literally can't lose ever.
Yes.
I completed Warhammer. And then and then you'd play someone who has a certain list or whatever, and you'd be like, what?
someone with a good plan that put you in your box, and you need those games. And I think that's with strong armies, that's the place to go, isn't it? You take them to events and you put them into the things that have people that have solutions to them, and the armies that have solutions to them. Then you learn a lot. You don't learn much just rolling people over locally. No. So that takes us to day 2. Lee, take us through your first game on day 2. What did you get?
So I obviously we knew what we were going to have the next day. So I looked down the BCP, and I had another local lad, big fan. Give a shout out to Stuart Mcintyre, who was my
Stuart Mcintyre, the very best of us.
He's a great player.
He's such a babe. He's such a hard opponent as well.
He's hard as nails to play against. He was running his Death Guard, which I know he's got lots of other armies out there, but that's the one he's sort of been committing to, and it shows. Yeah. He knows what he's doing.
He's top. He's high up with Death Guard right now.
I think he said he was first for a really long time until quite recently.
Yeah.
He knows it inside out, and the list design is very clever. He even had a couple of rhinos in there just for, it was for 2 reasons really. One for potentially being a screen, or sort of either maybe against some mortals or against that deep striking, but also literally for 3 inches of extra movement.
Yes,
for disembarking. So, and he had the way he deployed was clever. And I have done a me versus I bat rep, where I played demons into Death Guard, and I knew I was going to hit him, and I was. And I knew. Oh, sorry, I've got a barking dog in the background there.
Oh, that's fine. Don't worry about it.
Come on, be on camera if you want to be. Loud.
You're allowed to star. You're allowed to star. It's okay.
And I knew how it would go. That I would bounce because I've got some rare 2 damage, and everything else is basically strength 3 or 4, and he's basically toughness 5 or more. So my goal was to just try and out obsec him. I actually did go first, and what I tried to do, and I still think it was the right decision, but maybe I could have done it better, was to lump my bloodletters forward. And what I did was I wanted to charge one thing, but have a huge wall of them directly in front. So no matter what, he was pinned in. So I charged in, and I stayed 3 inches away because he had Mortarian's Anvil, so could directly intervene, and he graciously told me that before doing it, and there were no gotcha moments in the game at all. One thing I've always said to Stuart's credit is he's very open, and he always plays by intent, and I really like that about him.
He's very honest,
reasonable. He knows what your intention is, and he won't take the piss with that. So what I did was I had this big line of bloodletters along the front, and I thought I'll just charge it. I think I charged into the possessed, the Squirrel Possessed, and I thought if I can take a couple of those down,
you don't see possessed out much.
No, they're good in Death Guard because they're a bit quick.
They're real good. Yeah, they're real good.
And then I tried to tag a play burst caller as well, and I got into all of it, and I made that move. What I couldn't do was stay out of heroic intervention range of his this is where I think the game was lost. I couldn't stay out of heroic intervention range of his Poxwalkers.
Yeah,
he got them round, killed a few bloodletters. That's fine. I didn't really care about that. And obviously, in his turn, then he was basically on an objective that he would never have gotten to. In one turn with a huge advance, maybe, but he played that very well, and he saw that opportunity. In the end, it was still quite close. 70. I scored 70. He scored 83. So 13 points in it. I almost fell foul of doing the thing that I said in a podcast just recently to never do, which is to defeat yourself.
Yes.
So I got into sort of turn 3, and I thought, I just don't think I'm scoring any points from here. And he was like, no, remember what you said on your podcast a little while ago?
Yeah, he did. I heard that exchange. Yeah,
he said that resonated with me. And I don't know, I can't remember now if he said that's something that he's done before, but it's.
No, he did. He did, yeah.
Yeah, and it was useful for me because I probably went and scored another 15 points after that. Because he never truly out. So, no, a really good game, really good opponent. Beautifully painted and converted as always.
His models are nuts, and so Stuart is a 6++ regular viewer and commenter and local friend and sparring partner. So it's obviously nice for him to do well, and I'm glad that you guys had such a good close game as well. Yeah, I was listening in on it because I was on the table just down from you as well.
I think
So
the last
well
time
done.
he'd learned from last time we played, in which I had my Thousand Suns then, and Death Guard and the Thousand Suns is not a nice time for Death Guard.
No.
And I think that was nice for him. So he got one up on me this time.
Yeah, nice to have some tools, some tools in his favour, right? I think that was good. Chris, what did you have day one? Day two.
So, obviously, Thousand Suns Codex came out at the same time as Grey Knights, and I think
Yes, it did. Yes,
I think pretty much every Battle Report channel at that time did Grey Knights into Thousand Suns. I think
yes, they did.
In every single game, Grey Knights won. So what I was really hoping to avoid was Grey Knights. So I got for my game, I got Adam, who Lee played in game one.
Okay, the same Adam. Yeah, Grey Knights Adam.
Same Adam, really lovely guy. It was really nice just to chat to him and hopefully get to play again soon. So going in, I knew it was going to be a really tough game, and I had this bold plan of just sticking to one end of the board, hiding away, because those Dread Knights are obviously going to do the Lord's work into all the Thousand Suns. And if I could put one unit out, -1 to hit 4++ and do something, maybe. But it just felt like as soon as I stuck my head out, everything was going to shoot into. I wouldn't be able to trade. And it felt, in my mind, I was like, I just don't see how I do well in this game. But I mean, the board didn't have the best terrain either in terms of hiding. Like, if you wanted to hide in your deployment zone, you had to be right back on your line. So I got first turn, and Adam hadn't combat squadded his interceptors. So there was a big, juicy 10-man, which I was like, right, let's do this. Let's go into. So I kind of put the Terminators forward a bit, buffed them, shot into these interceptors, killed 5. Had the other unit of Terminators sneaking around the left-hand flank, and just was like, well, if you go then. And he did exactly what I really hoped he wouldn't do, which was stick all 4 Grey or Dread Knights just in the middle of the board. I knew that if he did that, I was pretty screwed. And sure enough, they all just sat there, all in reroll range of each other. And it was a really interesting game because I think this was probably the game I played the best over the weekend. I really tried to pull out all the stops I could just to keep denying him points. And his turn 3, I was like, I've got like a 20-point lead here, could be okay. And then I kind of looked and I was like, but that Terminator unit's dead or nearly dead. And those rubrics are probably all about to die because they are sat in the middle of the board. And the Demon Prince is out on his own. He's about to die. I was like, it's not great. And then somehow, miraculously, all 3 things still survived. Just proper whiffer from Adam. And I managed to keep one guy kind of like of the 10-man in the middle alive on 1 wound. So he was able to consolidate onto the objective and steal that. Demon Prince was still alive. Somehow a Dread Knight just whiffed into my Terminators. I was like, I might be okay. The problem was that the next turn, all those things then did die, as did everything else. And at that point, we saw, I think turn 4, we saw what happens when you're able to just freely put 4 Dread Knights into 10 Terminators. And what happens is all the Terminators die. Then he charged his Grandmaster into Araman. And unfortunately, Araman died for a second time in the event. And from having a kind of like a 20-25 point lead, he snuck it at the end just because I was basically tabled turn 4. So it ended 81-74, really close game. It was joy to play, and hopefully I can get my revenge soon.
Yeah. No, excellent. And as you say, that's a tough matchup. So running him that close is very, very good going.
I love it. Imagine if you played that with your Custodes.
I would like to imagine that. If you want to
I imagine all of your games have been slightly different with your Custodes.
That's true.
Yeah. I hope so.
There weren't really Custodes at the event. I don't think
there
were any.
No Custodes at the event.
Which slightly did distort the meta situation there.
I could have had all the pressure on me.
It was wide open for Custodes.
Yeah. I was so close to taking 18 Custode bikes, Chris's bikes, but
you should have done. You should have done. That would have been hilarious.
Instead, 150 bodies of nonsense.
My first game of day 2, I had John Drakely. Now, I know John Drakely well because I've played him in league games. Twisted Dice, and he is a Harlequins and Drakari player. He's sort of committed to Eldari as his his main project in general. So we've chatted quite a lot. So I knew John well. I knew John's list very well because it's two armies I know very well. And I've played John, and I know John is still learning the game. So this was quite a rough matchup for John in his game 4. And it was all the rougher for the fact that I was coming in off a loss, and I was very determined to make someone hurt on day 2. So John had a nice little patrol of Harlequins, Solitaire, various characters, but he didn't have transports yet because transports weren't available at this stage of all the boats, the Harlequin boats had sold out a couple of weeks before, and John hadn't been able to get any, so he had a load of stuff on foot. And then he had a ton of grotesques and a bunch of Talos and racks and all of the Coven stuff that I love using to hold objectives and take points. So it's quite a nasty combination of things. But in deployment, John had his Harlequins basically on one flank and his Coven on the other, which he said wasn't something he did in other games, and I think that's good because I don't think that was the way to run it. And he got first turn, which again I don't think he wanted, and sort of brought a few things out, and then I hit the Harlequin side really hard in the face with literally everything I have right now, and it evaporated. And then it was a very difficult game for John from that point. And the only exception to that, the best moment of that was my Solitaire running into his Solitaire, switching its invuln off and just slicing him up as well, because that was extremely, extremely funny. That made it very difficult for John to recover from that point, and he punched back pretty well with Talos and Grotesque and killed quite a bunch of my characters, and we fought over the centre, but the Harlequin flank had just caved in, so I was just ahead of him on the mission and on the objectives all game. So that finished 137. A tough game for John, and we've had a much closer game tonight. I played against his latest iteration with my Gene Stealer Cults, and we had a very, very good, interesting game. And John is improving all the time, so don't take it to heart, John, and keep on writing these filthy, filthy lists that you're writing, because they're great and they're all disgusting, and you're coming on leaps and bounds. So that takes us then to game 5. What, Chris, did you draw for game 5?
Well, I'm 2-2. I'm like, just give me something which I feel like I have some sort of play into. I feel sad that I've had to play into Grey Knights. Just give me something. So I was really pleased to see that I got to play into Crusher's Stampede, run by Ace. That made me really happy. Very nice. Lee gave me a 5% chance of winning if Ace was really unlucky. And so Ace was running a Hierophant.
Yeah, that's the big one.
Which is the giant thing, which I was told that I had no chance of killing. And then also just various beasties. The board was an interesting one. It's the sort of terrain I hate because it's like these buildings which are all completely open. They're not the biggest buildings. You can easily move around them to get line of sight, and as soon as you sit in them, you're just seen. Obviously, you can shoot out, but you're just seen. So it didn't feel there was much terrain. And obviously, he's very manoeuvrable. Thousand Sons aren't the most manoeuvrable. It's quite hard to choose secondaries against as well. It was really so easy to go into, as Lee says, that mindset of, well, I can't win, what's the point? But I did want to play into Crusher's Stampede because it's just good to have experienced the game for when I'm taking something like my Custodes, just so you can kind of know their output, their movements, how they play the missions, and those sort of things. And that was something I didn't have experience of. So I got first turn. Everything was as far hidden back as it could be. Kind of moved forward, teleported unit of Terminators to just within range of his Scythe, Hyrule, and unloaded Hell, and left it on 3 wounds. So I didn't kill anything. One fun thing was that my Zangor Shaman, who went and sat in the middle of the board to Psychic Interrogate and then warp time back, both warp times failed. So after the reroll, so that was fun. So he just died next turn as this giant 30 wound Hierophant just sat in the middle of the board. I went, come on in, bro. The Hierophant didn't actually do too much with his shooting because Terminators sat in cover do get a 4-up save. And I rolled super hot on a 4-up save and lost like 1 Terminator to like half of his shooting. And then I lost like half from another unit of Terminators. Then in my turn, I plinked off obviously killed that Hydril, and then unloaded the 9-man into this Flyrant, which is like -1 to wound, just 4 up in Von, just horrendous to try and kill, and I only did like 6 wounds to it. And then he ran at me and everything died. The end was essentially I had not screened particularly well. You know, when you're a bit tired, you're struggling to think straight anyway. And then, he managed to get into everything. And it was 57-92. So, scored some points and I killed 2 models the entire game. So,
ouch.
It was fun. But no, he played it well. It was good to learn the matchup. He's fine.
But I never played better than I thought he would, to be totally honest.
Yeah, well, I'm pro mate.
Yeah. And we're just waiting to find out whether Crusher continues to exist, aren't we? Because we've got a new Tyrannus book coming. And the interesting question is how many of the extra rules layers Tyrannus currently have will continue to be with us. Because if they are going to be with us, then all hell's going to break loose. And if not, maybe it will be okay. Maybe. Who knows?
We'll come on to that.
Yeah, we will come on to that. Let's not give away too much of our opinions on the current set of releases in the game just yet, because we've got to talk about our next round, which is round 5. So starting to get a bit knackered by this point, headaches starting to kick in. Mm-hmm. What were you drawn against, Lee?
So I had Alex Chancellor for my game.
Hey, the Orcs.
We've had a huge overlap here in people we've all played more than once, haven't we? So,
yes, we have.
It was
good people. Luckily, all the good people.
Yes. Yeah, Alex was great. I've seen him at the local club a lot, but I've never played him before, so it was nice to finally get to do that.
He's technically such a savvy player.
Yeah, he was good. And he's one of those players that I really like, and that he's sensible with dice. He's like, just roll these if you want. Let's not spend a load of time counting out save dice when you can just roll the dice I've just rolled for wounds. And I like that because who's got the time?
Yeah.
So I won't go into his orc list. Obviously, Chris covered it off at the beginning. The one thing of note that I was quite scared of in the list, though, was he had the are they Death Copters? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, Death Copters are brutal.
He had a big bunch of those, and I deployed really aggressively because he had all the buggies. And I thought, well, I can't remember who I was talking to. Maybe it was Chris. Like, if I go second, I'm going to lose, so I have to pretend that I'm going to go first. I hope for the best. And it was one of those games. I thought he's going to be on me, so I'd have to try and go first. And I did. I did go first.
Yay!
So what I was able to do was I just lobbed all my flamers directly into the face of those Deathcopters, and because of they've got a 12-inch range and a 12-inch move, that was quite easy to do because of how aggressive I'd been, and I popped them all wound strat and I killed them all. And then with everything else, I was a bit more conservative. And then he came to take the middle of the board. And then we had this really weird standoff for quite a long time, and that I didn't want to put Be'lakor out because he had all the tank busters. And he didn't want to overcommit either because he knew it was whoever was going to put their head out was going to get it chopped off.
Yes.
But what did happen in the end was that 2 of the buggies charged to take the middle objective, and that left it, and they were close enough to a wall that Be'lakor could fight through. So Be'lakor ate both of those for breakfast through the wall and gave me a really nice jumping off point for wherever I wanted to go in my next turn.
Yes.
So it was cagey, but eventually I had taken Bring It Down because he had so many vehicles. The reason I was so cagey was because if I didn't have Be'lakor alive, I wasn't killing any vehicles. That was my only way of doing that, other than a flamer bomb going off again. The usual tricks with the Bloodletters, try and pile on to the objectives and steal them all. And then Be'lakor eventually went and killed another 3 buggies in later. So he got 5 buggies in the game on his own.
Nice.
Alex played it really well. He sort of managed to split my forces so that he's like, okay, well, if you want Be'lakor to do that thing, then you won't have enough movement in the rest of the game to get him to do the other thing you want to do. So he played that really well.
Nice. Yeah.
But really, by that time, I had taken out enough of the key resources that he was going to struggle to. I just had so many bodies left. That ended 91-75 and a 3rd win of the event.
Very, very good. Back in the hunt. And Chris, what did you have game 5?
I had Ace, who I've already spoken about.
Oh, was that your 5?
That was my game 5, yeah.
Oh, I think have we missed one for you? No, we haven't. I've just lost count.
You've had too much of that wine.
It might be the pint. The pint of wine's probably done it, hasn't it? That's probably what it is. So here we are. So I got Stuart. Speaking of pairing into people we'd already played. So I drew Spirit's Death Guard, and so the last couple of times I've played Stuart, I've been running Gene Stealer Cults, and in both of those games, he has absolutely spanked me without any kind of remote issues at all. That one was pre-new book, and one was after new book. And so I did at least, as you say, I know, having played Stuart, that A, he's a very cagey player, and B, it's the Poxwalkers that kill you. If you let them get going, or if you undercommit to killing them, you can end up in lots of trouble. And so we were playing on conversion, and essentially the way this played was Stuart had taken to the last on his Plague Burst Crawlers. I went first. I redeployed all the Void Weavers to go Plague Burst Crawler hunting. And I played, I'm not coming near the middle, I'm going to play you on the flanks because I don't want you just rolling all the way down the middle with charges to get all your zombies down onto my backfield. And I got a little bit cheeky because I literally just had a Shadow Seer making herself untargetable over and over again on my backfield objective, and everything else went and played because she was just on her own. And everything else got stuck in and played. Now, it was a tough game. I took Banners, which probably wasn't a great pick, and Stuart did a good job of taking Banners down a couple of times. And I think the rub of it was that 4 Void Weavers can sit in front of 3 Plague Burst Crawlers and win that shootout over 5 turns, which says a lot about the current state of Void Weavers, right? Because Plague Burst Crawlers are the Death Guard's best anti-tank, and they literally cannot scratch them because they just can't. Between the missing and the 4-ups and the luck re-rolls, they just can't put enough damage onto them. To stop the Void Weavers again with luck rerolls, just making all of their damage really reliable, just chewing through the Plague Burst Crawlers. So Stuart lost his to the last. Eventually, I'd got enough stuff around either side that I could just sort of bully and delete zombie squads one at a time in full because I had people either side of the building, so it wasn't like he could leave a few left to resurrect and bring back the next time. And then I dropped a couple of troops onto his backfield just to die, but to take that backfield objective. And shut it off because his zombies were kind of caught between wanting to go forwards and wanting to be on the backfield. Now, Stuart is a technically great player. This was just one of those situations where you could just really feel a very overpowered, overtuned new book doing a lot of the heavy lifting. I think the ability to move 6 away from charges is just so brutal against Death Guard because they're already struggling to catch you, and then you're like, now it's 6 inches further away. And I think that just made it so difficult for him to lay a glove. So it was one of those games that I think for me threw into relief how bad the situation is between early edition books and newer ones at the moment. But all credit to Stuart, he made it very close. It was a very nice, very relaxed game. Again, we had sort of take backs going on, and we had very clear intentions and all of that stuff, and we worked through it. And I think there are a few bits of luck that went my way. Helped in no small part by Laughing God rerolls to get things like the mower drones dead early, because I think if they're running around early doors, they might have created more problems. But that meant that we could sort of roll through to, and I think it was 94-53 in the end, because the primary went until the last went, and that was the killer thing. So it was a very good game, but definitely one that was all of the heavy lifting done by the scary new Harlequin rules, I think. So well played, Stuart. And that takes us to the finale. It's
big
the
round
end.
6.
It's the big round 6. So, Chris, because I'm drunk and I forgot what you were doing, what were you doing in round 6? Because I know you definitely haven't told us that yet.
I have not told you that, no. So
You'd know if he told you this.
Oh, yeah.
Strap in, everybody.
Get ready. Get ready.
So I was up against Ashley, who was taking Astra Militarum.
Okay.
So obviously they're not in the best place at the moment. He was running like 7 tanks, 70 troops, basically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I went up to the table. Now, I would probably say that Ashley wasn't particularly pleased about having to play against Thousand Suns.
Okay.
His friend who he plays against all the time, he was like, "Oh, I've never beaten Thousand Suns." It always annoys me You know, like when you're like, okay, it's already like talking us down, as in like if you now win, it's just because I'm garbage.
I would like to add that I think earlier that day I'd said to Chris, one of the armies I would least like to play with my Thousand Sons would be Imperial Guard.
Yeah, I think
have the
that's
answers. Right. They've just got artillery, and Thousand Sons don't have an answer for that.
Yeah.
But I won't spoil the rest.
Anyway, so I walk up to the table. I'm like, should we do the terrain then? He's like, I don't see any problem with the terrain. No, it was a 5-objective mission. The entirety of the middle of the board was empty, apart from some crates. All of the ruins were pushed back like a couple of inches behind the two objectives in the
because it's the scouring, right? So it's got super close. The objectives are all super bunched up in the middle, so it does need a completely different terrain setup, doesn't it?
And so essentially, all of the objectives were wide open in the middle. I was like, "Shall we move the terrain?" He was like, "No, I don't see any problem." I was like, "Well, they're all in the open. Maybe we at least move one onto an objective." He was like, well, "I guess if you want." I'm like, yes, I do.
Yes, I do very much.
So anyway, so he's already annoyed that he's playing into Thousand Sons. I've managed to get a little bit of terrain, but just to reiterate, there is nowhere to hide in the middle of the board. He's obviously lined up all 70 of his troops at the front and then all the tanks at the back. So he's got like a load of demolisher cannons, which are like 2d6 shots, 24-inch range, d6 damage or something. And he's got 3 manticores, which are like 3 damage and like 2d6 shots and stuff. So he's definitely got the tools to take me out. Then we come to the first turn roll-off, and he's like, well, this decides if we have a game or not, I guess. And then I win the roll-off to go first. And he's like, brilliant, cool. I was like, oh. So I was like, well, okay, cool. So what I did was, for the first time really, I went super aggressive and I did the Terminators and I deployed them 9 inches from his front line on the left flank. And then they moved forward 5. And then I just obliterated a lot of his troops. I think I killed about 40 troops. Nice. And the intention there was just to obviously take out his OBSEC, but also to then, on this left flank, he had 2 tanks. So I was going to charge in, kill the troops in front of the tank, and then consolidate into the 2 tanks behind it. I just didn't get it right at all. I just kind of forgot that when I do that first charge, I hit that front line, and I can't actually pile in around it because I didn't roll a big enough charge. So it meant I couldn't then consolidate into the second tank. And whereas what I should have done was just made sure that front unit did die so I could charge into the tank, get right around the side of the tank, and then consolidate into the second one. So I just didn't do that right. So I've killed like 40 troops. I've tagged 1 tank. Then he proceeds to shoot his entire army at those 10 Terminators, and he kills 9 of them. And the salt level then rises even higher because he's not managed to kill a single unit.
A 500-point unit, though.
Yeah.
It's not
but
like
if there's one left, you might as well not bother, right?
Yeah, exactly right. Yeah, I mean, that was such a game-changing model. And at this point, I'm like, okay, right, we just now need to get into some stuff. So I'm like, I know what I'll do. I'll move my Zangor Enlightened down this right flank. I'll warp time them. They can charge into these little troops that are on an objective, which are doing the mission secondary.
Oh, yeah.
And then consolidate into the tank. Beautiful textbook play here. I didn't want to shoot into those troops because, the bolters are so damn effective. I was like, I could quite easily
just kill them all. Yeah,
accidentally kill them all. They all needed to die. So I think there was like 4 or 5 left. I'm like, well, hopefully Zangor and Lion can take them out. They probably couldn't have actually, but anyway, I haven't found out.
I definitely wouldn't.
Basically, what happened was my shooting into this Pask, which was the tank nearby, left him on 3 wounds. And at this point, apparently I just forgot all statistics, all reality, all anything. And I made probably one of the worst Warhammer plays I have made in like multiple years, where my brain went, so you got 3 wounds left. Why don't you charge the tank and the troops? And then you can kill both with your 3 Zangor Enlightened. And what happened there was that, funnily enough, I did forget that Guard have multiple strats which make them quite good at shooting. One of which is Overwatch on 5s, one of which is Vengeance for Cadia, reroll everything. And essentially those 3 Zangor Enlightened died immediately.
Yeah.
And that was actually quite a big swing, because from going from having this Pask tank that is now going to have to shoot and kill 3 Zangor Enlightened, and me being on this objective and just generally being a nuisance, it's then suddenly changed to this Pask now gets to shoot wherever he wants. And I had a Demon Prince on spawn on the middle of objective, and Pask was then able.
Like we've lost Chris.
I didn't know if we lost Tom as well.
Can you hear me? I'm here.
I can hear you. You're all good.
Can you hear me?
So it's you and me. Oh,
I don't know if this is recording sound or not, but if it is, then I hate you, Chris.
Sorry about that. Slight issue.
We can never go a week without a technical issue, can we?
No. Anyway, I think I was mid-rant about how rubbish I was at Warhammer. And,
you were. You could end it there, to be honest.
Yeah, the end. Cool. That's the wrap. No, it was. It just allowed him to clear out in the middle of the board. And then it just led to me basically having to retreat behind my walls and try and hold on for the win. And I got absolutely nowhere near holding on for the win because the final score was, well, I'm going to say that. It was 73-67. What actually
it was very
happened,
close, yeah.
Yeah, what actually happened was I spent ages working out how I could win the game, and I worked out a way that I would win the game by 1 point, which would be me moving my Terminators out, smiting and killing this tank, and then my final Terminator's not dying. If that would happen, I'd get the grind and I'd just eke out a 1 point victory. And I was feeling pretty confident because all the Manticores had run out of missiles. At that point, I then realised I did all of that stuff and then realised I'd miscounted and not given him 2 points. So it made no difference anyway because I was always going to lose. So that's fun.
Yeah.
It was a frustrating game because I played utter garbage. Now, he was very happy. He was like, I just wanted to say thank you because I've never won 3 games at an event. And I've never beaten thousand suns before. And I've now managed to do all those things. I'm like, oh, great. I'm so happy for you. So, yeah, and it was just frustrating because for the first 2 turns, he'd been quite salty. Whenever dice didn't go his way, he was getting a bit annoyed. And I'm like, yeah, but you didn't really roll under 10 for your 2d6 shots on your Manticores the entire game.
You've got to be nice the whole way through. You can't be nice at the end.
Yeah, exactly. So
just
he
when you're winning,
when he realised he had a good shot of winning, and that was a bit frustrating.
Yeah, I think that's one of the things I find most that really gets my back up. If there's been like a sort of tense or negative attitude, and you can almost feel it improving as the game state turns, that's like, oh, okay. So you're just this is unpleasant for me when it's not going well for you. And it can be nice for me as long as it's going well for you. Is that how this is? Like it's not
at
nice.
No point was it ever unpleasant.
No.
Like you could just, when you can just sense an edge. And that's exactly what it was.
A competitive edge, if you will.
Yeah, I could just sense his disgruntlement, and then that all kind of evaporated. So it was a frustrating way to end, more so than anything just from myself, because I just played garbage. And, you want to, obviously the dream is to take this random army and then do well with it.
And smash with it, right? Yeah.
And that obviously didn't happen in the slightest. It was a humbling experience, shall we say. And there were points where you're like, oh, okay, this is quite fun. At other points I was like, this is just not an enjoyable army to play. It doesn't suit how I want to play the game at all. So no, I'm glad I got to experience Thousand Suns, because funny enough, like on the Friday night, Lee and I were like talking about Thousand Suns paint schemes I could do because I was going to fall in love with this army. And
I think we even did that on the drive-in on the Saturday morning.
It was, yeah, exactly. And
Crystal Harbingers or something like that.
So I will not be purchasing a Thousand Suns.
That's not going to be your next army.
At least now you know that, though.
I do now know that, and that's why it's fun. I would probably not recommend the experience to anyone else, realistically.
Playing Thousand Suns.
Well, that, but also just taking an army you have literally never used before to a tournament.
Yeah, you won a couple games, don't you?
That first game is just like, what do I do now? Just like you forget what it's like. You forget what it's like that very first game when you play with your mates and you're like, what do I do now? And you spend ages thumbing through everything. Like you just forget that that's what it's like. And doing that is like not really that fun. the opponent. I mean, as it was, I finished all of our games finished with time and stuff, but it was. Yeah, it was a frustrating experience, especially when I was like, "Oh, my poor Custodes."
Yeah, you know what you could have done.
Yeah, so finished 2 and 4. It was an interesting experience. I'm glad I've done it. I won't be doing it Thousand Suns again, but hey, I feel a lot more prepared now for when I go into Thousand Suns.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go.
So
You've
you've learned their weak spots and their
exactly.
limits, and that's something you
I
definitely
already
learn
knew
better
them
playing
reasonably
them.
well to play against, but just playing with them, you learn so much more. So
Yeah.
glad I did it.
Awesome.
Thank you,
I'm glad you did it, and I think having because you'd had some great events in the run-in with Custodes, and this was a sort of self-inflicted humbling. I think I respect that. I like a self-inflicted humbling. I think that's good. I'm taking GSC to Hellstorm to achieve a similar effect. And so, Lee, let's talk about your final game. What did you run into for that?
Well, I actually got the Boogeyman. I got Harlequins for my final game.
Harlequins. So presumably you lost that, Lee, because Harlequins cannot be defeated by any mortal means.
This was my biggest win of the entire event.
Oh, did you? You smashed them, did you?
Spoilers, it went 148.
Oh.
Ouch.
So, tell us how you did it, Lee.
Well, let me quickly
tell the world.
Secondary. So I took Stranglehold, Assassination, and Psychic Interrogation. So he had about 1 million characters.
They do that, yeah.
He took Deadly Performance, Stranglehold, and Psychic Interrogation. Now he confessed at the beginning Deadly Performance was not a clever thing to do. No. But he's like, I want to try it because it's new and I haven't done it yet. He did have a goal of winning 3 games and he had achieved that, and he was like, I don't really care now.
Okay.
So his list was lots of troops. It was a number of 2 squads of the jet bikes, a number of the transports. No Void Weavers. He didn't have any.
No Void Weavers.
No, he just didn't have any.
That's why he lost.
Yeah.
I mean, I would just
he's
ignore
read
him anyway,
9 online, and he's just misread it as none.
Yeah.
I had none Void Weavers. Okay, that's what I'll do as well then. That's fine.
So what I did was I forward deployed. I was on the weird Eldar terrain board this time, and I'd forward deployed my Nurgling bases onto those the 2 objectives that were outside of our deployment zone, purely as bait. I was just like, if you charge these, I'll be living the dream because that's a roadblock for you. You could come closer to me. You're not going to.
Yeah.
He did take the bait on both sides, charged both of them, probably killed them both. I don't remember. But what that meant was that he was just on the other side of the terrain, closer to me. And if you think about my army has no shooting at all, it's terrible.
Yeah.
But what I do have is 90 shots with pink horrors at strength 4.
Yes, you do.
With full rerolls to hit, because they're now close enough for that.
Yeah.
From Bellacor's Warlord trait. Yeah. And then the other side, what have I got? 12 Flamers of Tzeentch.
Yeah.
So I open all the cans, all the beans come out.
Oh dear!
And then all the bloodletters go and eat beans.
Yeah,
basically.
That's a really sad day for the Harlequins. Multi-phasal Eldar nightmare out the boat and chopped up in the same turn.
Yeah, exactly. I think I probably killed about 700 points in turn 1. And I made the world's most impressive charge. So I put in the bloodletters into the middle. And there was some terrain there that meant that I was -2 to charge. And then he wanted to move away one of his things 6 inches. But I had enough juicy targets to get to. And then I rolled the charge and I got a 17 because of 3d6 plus 1.
Which is nice.
So I basically ran the entire board, killed 2 more boats and a character. And fought twice and finished off another boat.
Oh Christ! So he's lost every transport at turn 1, pretty much. By the sound,
I think there was 1 left after that.
God!
All the characters were out.
Yeah,
and then I mean the writing was on the wall quite early.
Yeah, they don't like it up them.
The only other really interesting part was that he decided turn 2, so he didn't have to do it. He just wanted to YOLO. He'd been watching you play, Tom, and he said, "I'm going to just." I've got a Shadow Seer that does like a ridiculous move and then can charge. It was like a 3d6 move.
Oh, was it the Solitaire?
Like
Solitaire with the Blitz. Yeah.
So he's like, I'm just gonna go and charge Be'lakor.
Do it. Why not?
So he went into Be'lakor. He spent 5 CP for things like no invuln, boosted damage. I can't remember the other buffs. and then he got a number of hits through.
Yeah.
And then didn't get a single wound to go through.
Oh dear.
Because he was winning on 5s because strength to toughness.
Yeah.
And then, as you can imagine, Be'lakor knocked him into space.
Yeah.
Tore him in half. Like, literally ripped his head off and shoved it back down.
Him aside. Yeah. Oh, God.
And at that point, Be'lakor was having a party after that because every turn he then went and picked up a character or two.
And that's why a 110-point model cannot, in fact, kill a 500-point one.
Yeah. I mean, Be'lakor throughout the entire event was so much fun because he does die, and he did die. But when he goes in, it's just so great. Because he's got all the keywords, you can make him fight twice.
Oh, wow.
Which is fantastic. So you got 12 attacks at strength, a billion, minus a billion, no inbound saves, D3 plus 3 damage.
Yikes.
Or you can combo with other stratagems. So there's one to have exploding 6s. There's ones to reduce your attacks by 1. There's lots of good stuff in there. Mostly the Sinesh ones, to be honest with you. I never really look at the Tzeentch ones or the Nurgle ones.
There's nothing.
But
good.
148, and it was a really fun,
an absolute shellacking. Yeah. I was expecting to draw you and get quite similar treatment. So
we were very close to drawing each other.
We were very close, and I was definitely of a mind that your list would beat my list because for all of the reasons,
you seemed a bit nervous
for all of the reasons that you've outlined, which is that it's got loads of obset, it's got a good delivery, it's got massive volume, and it's got a guy flying around that won't die, that doesn't care about inbuns. So there's a lot of things in there which Harlequins don't like. So I'm glad that this guy got it and not me. And I'll have to face it another day. We could do it on channel. That might be a fun one to try.
That could be a fun one.
If it's actually a good pairing, then that would be a nice one to try. Wonderful. Well, what I got instead for my final game was Tau, and I was essentially at this point playing to try and snag a top spot because I'd lost my game, but I'd then won everything else. So, and I was playing against the only remaining undefeated player, I think, at this stage, Grant, with his Tau, who was 5-0 at this point and had been absolutely spanking people left, right, and centre. So there was a chance, I think there was an outside chance for me to take top spot, but in the main, it was just, as long as you win this, you're probably going to get a top 3. And that was kind of how it looked. I think if I'd lost it, I'd have dropped off entirely, and that would have been it. So I was going into it quite apprehensive. I'd never beaten Grant. I've played Grant many times over the years, and I've lost every single time. Tau are horrific. But there were things in my favour. I felt like the Harlequins are hard for Tau. They do lots of things Tau don't like. Minus 6-inch range aura on the Shadow Seer means that all their little no line of sight guns have to get very, very close before they can do anything. The 1, 2s, and 3s to hit missing is big, as is the no re-rolls on the boats and the bikes. And then the Scouring compounded that, because the Scouring is a real, okay, we all come and play in the middle mission, which the Tau don't want to do in this game, and the Harlequins really do. Our terrain was set up pretty well. We had big L's in the middle, so there was quite a lot of space for hiding and delivering early doors. And essentially, Grant got first turn, which again, I don't think he wanted. And he came forward with a crisis bomb. Grant's list had 2 big broadside bombs, crisis bomb. They were his to the last targets. He had a smattering of troops and a rail gun hammerhead, commander, a couple of ethereals. This was the list that had Ornvar, and so it didn't do Montkar or Kauyon because of a sort of cock up in the wording there, which Grant had been made aware of and was playing it correctly. And he came forward, and his crisis bomb shot didn't do a lot. The hammerhead shot picked up a Starweaver straight away, just pot 1, because if it hits, that's what happens. But it's basically with the hammerhead, you're playing coin toss every turn. Do I hit it? If I hit it, I kill it. If I don't, I don't. And he hit 1 turn 1, so pot 1 boat. I then fly forwards with the Solitaire, the Troop Master, and some bikers to go into the crisis team. And then all my other stuff is moving to sort of rush forwards. I'm picking up stealth suits and crew and fire warriors and little extra things on objectives to shoot him off objectives on my way. Solitaire and Troopmaster and Bikers go in and make an absolute mess of the crisis suits because I've already been shooting at them and I've plinked away all their drones and security and stuff. And between the Solitaire switching off invuns, Troopmaster just hitting and wounding quite effortlessly, they slice. I think there's 2 crisis suits left, which I think for Grant is quite distressing because that's one of his to the last, and he's expecting them to probably take more damage than that. So then in Grant's turn, he goes very defensive. They fly back. He sort of castles up to sort of try and keep pruning away, and he pops a load more boats, kills some troops. I've got lots of stuff is dying. My bikers are dying, and on the primary, I'm scoring big because I'm holding all of the middle, and Grant's had to kind of retreat back off into a corner, and I've killed him off the objective. So then I push on. My characters, the Solitaire has hidden in the central building and takes all the artillery, like just all of it, all the no line of sight shooting. I've saved all my rerolls because I'm like, I know what's happening this turn. The Solitaire's getting battered by SMS. So the Solitaire just played, do I need to reroll this 3 up over and over and over again with SMS until Grant's mental health just deteriorated so much that he stopped trying to do it. And then the Solitaire flew forwards and we finished off the crisis suits and got started on his next to the last, which was one of the broadside squads. Again, in his turn, he kind of kept hitting back. And so in turn 3, I start to run out of stuff. I'm getting down to the bare bones. I'm getting tabled pretty quickly. But I have enough stuff in my 3 to run through and finish off the broadside. So that's 2 to the last down. And I'm big up on primary at this point. And basically, the dregs of my army survives pretty well through 4 because he's now got a lot less shooting. I think the Hammerhead manages to pop 1 more boat across the game. It misses twice, hits twice. And Grant sort of does that. It's that classic kind of late stage rolling that Tau do where you're sort of running out of stuff. But because Grant has gone first, he can't profit from that
if you want to go
as
second
much.
there,
That he wants second big time. He can't profit, whereas I can. I kept sort of shutting him off primary, and I was able to score deadly performance really well and stranglehold really well. So, and what I would say, psychic interrogation was also big because the Shadowseer basically hid like a coward reading minds all game. And Grant let me, I totally forgot I'd even taken it. Turn 1 because I was so fried from the end of the game, and I did other psychic powers and then remembered. And what I'd say is Grant was an absolute gent because Grant let me go back and do psychic interrogation and play that all properly. And so I think it was narrow. It was like 77-50 something in the end. Quite a brutal, hard, scraped out
hard
win.
way to finish a day.
A very hard game to finish the game, but it was, I think, it was one of the most epic games I've had in a long time because of the whole, we're rushing at you, you're shooting us to shit. And it was already all very dramatic and cinematic, and it ends with no elves really left on the board. And Grant played very well and was very, very sporting and really lovely to play against in what is, a rough matchup for Tau. And when having won all his games, when his sort of potential first place is on the line, I think to be that good and chill and generous with your play, when all that stuff is on the line, says a lot and speaks volumes. So massive shout out to Grant because he did really well and was a real gent to play, and I really enjoyed it. And it was the only time in my life I've ever beaten Grant, so I'll enjoy that while it lasts.
Good time to do it.
He won't let me waltz into that pairing again. I'm sure he'll come back with something to sort the Harlequins out. So that was the end, and that we waited. Oh, sorry, you go.
So how did it end?
That ends 77-51, and that meant that in the overall placings, I finished second. I wasn't able to overhaul Grant. I got this. Look, I've got a little thing. So we got this. Got a second place.
Very nice.
Got a voucher. And it was so Grant finished with his Tau, which I was very happy with because actually I was a bit. I think it was because they didn't do Wind Path, but in events where Wind Path happens, I wouldn't have even been able to take that off him because I'd lost way earlier in the event. And certainly as I saw it, if you lose round 3, that's definitely, that reflects worse than losing final round.
In round 5.
So I shouldn't really, it would have been a bit weird to leapfrog that with the way that was. Grant finished first, I took second, and then we had James Grover of Goonhammer with his Eldari in a paltry third, which clearly wasn't enough to merit a write-up. So fuck you, James. And it's fine because there'll be plenty of time to write an original Harlequins list now. I'm sure I'll be able to.
Oh yeah, it's gonna be
I'm sure that won't be covered anytime soon. And then there was some interesting finishing elsewhere. So where did you finish, Lee?
Well, I was a first place loser, basically.
You were first place loser. Fourth place,
which I was over the moon with.
Yeah,
absolutely
amazing.
over the moon with that.
Fantastic result.
I knew I was scoring really highly in my games.
Yeah.
I didn't know that there weren't many. I guess based on the number of people we had, there couldn't have been that many 4 and 2s, but I hadn't considered it. But yeah, to be the highest scoring 4 and 2,
it's huge.
And I'd scored more points than James Grover as well, so I actually would have.
Yeah.
Had it just been battle points, it would have been enough. But so scoring really well, and just the 2 losses that I had, I don't think I could have done much about them. So yeah, I'm really pleased.
Massive result with an interesting and unusual list and situation with the disciples as well. I think it's really cool. How about yourself, Chris? How did the dream end?
I don't actually know.
It became a nightmare. I think
it became a nightmare.
Yeah, obviously I finished 2 and 4.
Yeah.
I sound like 17th, 18th.
Yeah, I think it was 17.
Like
and Stuart Mcintyre took 7th place, which for Nurgle is obviously very important.
That's another thing in our game. Stuart called out at one point. He's like, I need to make all these charges. He made the 7-inch charges after calling out that, wouldn't it be funny if I made 7 7-inch charges? Then he did it. So truly blessed.
That is absolutely brilliant. Game. That is extremely
and
good.
He rolled. I don't mean he rolled 7-inch charges. I mean he rolled 7 times.
Yeah. That's so good.
Impressive.
Truly blessed. I mean, you double down on Death Guard like that, and those blessings will start to come your way. That's really very
rewarded.
Cool. Right. Okay. So that was Twisted War. It was a good event. It was relaxed, wasn't it? It was chilled. It wasn't like a huge weekend out. It was nice to sort of have a bunch of games with some people and in an environment we're quite familiar with, but still really be put through our paces. I've certainly thought a lot on the overall state of the game and my feelings on it since, so I will certainly have a brief rant about this, but I thought I'll open it up to you guys. I mean, having played through a few weeks of this latest batch of books and the situation, how do you see things at the moment? What do you kind of think we're at with 40k right now? Who wants to kick us off?
Go on, Lee.
I think for me, I just have this weird, and I can't really explain it, this weird exhaustion.
Yeah.
I just can't really be bothered. So I don't have many events coming up. I mean, I've got small ones that are sort of certainly more casual. But the thought right now of going to a Manchester GT or a Birmingham GT or a Bristol, whatever, I've just got no interest in that all of a sudden. And I think it's the oppressive releases and maybe the way that they're coming, not helped by the fact that it's been 586 days since the Chaos release hasn't come out.
Yes.
But I think
you're demoralised. It sounds like to me.
Yeah, maybe. There's just incredible disparity now between even. Do you remember when Dark Angels came out? We were like, OP, permanent transhuman. What on earth are they thinking?
Yes.
And now I'm like, that's nowhere near enough.
No.
Despite what Paul tells us.
Despite what Paul will say, he's toughness volcano cannon or whatever. But I think it's seeing that, and it's seeing what's coming, and you're sort of starting to see. I mean, the entire Tyranid book was leaked. That was funny.
Yes.
And now we're starting to see some night leaks. Whether they're true or not, I don't know.
Yes.
But the arms race that's there right now is just like, well, I can't really be bothered to compete with that to the extent that I actually went and played some Age of Sigmar.
Yeah. Very nice.
Which was great. So thank you. And shout out to Mark Kirkham for that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just literally just going to a different solar system.
And it is that, isn't it? It's just this rush of very big, angry, scary books that don't seem to be playing the same game as the other ones that were out, really. It's quite nuts. And
I think what annoys me about them is that they don't even seem to be, that they are thematic and they seem to be well designed, but they don't seem to be, they're internally balanced to a fairly good degree now, but with no actual consideration around external balance anymore. And I know I've always said on this podcast that we shouldn't expect balance because that's a ridiculous thing to expect from a company that's designed to try and sell you things. But it just seems wild that these things keep happening, and that letting them through, and it's okay now.
But it makes it, because you have choices, and as you say, you don't have to expect the game to be balanced, but you also don't have to pay to go and play a supposedly sporting version of it, do you? Those are two different things. You can enjoy it and like the game, and not say, I think it's sensible for me to go to a ton of events in an environment where 3 or 4 books are just going to kick everything else to shit, and there's no point.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that given I'm trying not to come across as someone who's sort of thrown their toys out the pram.
Oh,
so
no,
I think
you've just come forth in this meta, so I don't think you have any. You need to have any concerns about that. It's not coming across salty if you're basically podiuming with an 8.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess that's kind of the point I want to make, is that I've not done badly given it.
No.
And yet I still don't want to keep doing it.
Yeah.
So I guess that's probably more telling. I mean, I still will continue to do it because deep down I'm a glutton for punishment. So.
Need that Chaos Space Marine book to come, don't you?
I want the Chaos Demon book to come.
Yeah,
that's the
Demons would be so good. Demons would be so good. Great and Clean one's going to be the best. You wait. Anyone with 2's
surely it's the time of the Bloodthirster.
Probably is. I reckon both. That'll be it. It'll be both them in lists. That'll be it.
Yeah.
How about yourself, Chris?
I think for me, there's not a lot of satisfaction at the moment. I think the game is just so brutal and cutthroat at the moment. Like competitive 40k, obviously you're on a knife edge. You turn up to the board and there's not enough terrain, and your game can quite easily be over in turn 2. And that is not satisfying for anyone.
No.
Like, I've had games with the AdMech where you would just blow someone over after 2 turns, and it doesn't feel good. You're like, okay, cool, I won, but that wasn't ever a game.
Yeah.
I was literally thinking back to a game I played in 8th, where at the club I was at, where we'd been all running our tournament lists and trying to pound each other into oblivion, and Jamie and I took Space Wolves into Blood Angels. And this was when they were utter garbage. And it was just a bunch of hitting on 3s, wounding on 4 stuff. And it was just nice because you were just playing a game, which meant you were going to get your full turns. You were trying to play tactically, but you weren't just at the threat of one false move, meaning you've just got, it's game over. Which is so easy to just lose the game if you give your opponent that sniff, because everything is so destructive.
Yes.
Obviously, I experienced that with the AdMech. And there's just no opportunity to kind of like, I made this mistake, but I can come back from it, because all of a sudden you're all gone.
You either don't make any mistakes and you win, or you make a mistake and you lose.
And it's not even necessarily that only happens against the top players.
No.
It's just like that now. And obviously, I've been playing AdMech and I've been playing Custodian, so I have been using those armies, and I fully understand the feeling of helplessness. So I can see how, like, playing into the Custodies, you can feel like, you just can't win. And then there are some other games which are, are really interesting. I haven't played into the Harlequins or the Eldari yet, so I can't comment.
I suspect these new ones against each other, I think, is interesting. I don't think that's the issue.
It's wave 2.
But it's everything. It's everything else, which is a lot of books now into them that isn't,
But even, like, I've heard like people say that a top tier Harlequins list just walks over a top tier Custodian list.
Yeah, I think the 9 Void Weavers absolutely does, because you can't. Let's say you put all your defensive buffs on a unit, then 6 Void Weavers shoot something else. So it's just that's. I don't think Custodians have an answer when that's what's happening. It's just too much. Too much.
Yeah, I think. I mean, I'm just a very competitively minded person. I want to keep going to tournaments. I want to try and do well, but it's just a bit high octane. And it'd be nice just to attend some tournaments or play some games where we are just taking some weaker stuff just to be able to relax. I think when you're always playing at that standard where you're trying to prep for the next tournament, I think it's just you're not getting any release. So I think trying different stuff like Sigmar or Blood Bowl or anything like that. I think that's could be a nice way.
It's the palate cleanser, isn't it? Because I think what that will do is actually the opposite of what I think it will do. So rather than be like, I'd like to play something else for a little while, it probably pushes you back towards 40k.
You always, that's exactly what happens. Whenever I play Age of Sigmar or Blood Bowl or Necromunda or something else, you're like, this is fun. And these are the reasons I love 40k, right? Because this highlights the things I actually love about it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'll echo both of you. The destructiveness, that's a massive point, because that's where this edition just lost the plot after about 2 books, didn't it? It just went from about Death Guard onwards. It just went nuts with how destructive things were and how much damage they did. And as you said, I think the problem I have is that so many games, the moment a game is lost is like halfway through it.
Yeah,
and I like games that feel like they're running, and I like those turn 4, turn 5 big dramatic endings, and they just don't happen in 9th. It doesn't feel like they happen much in 9th.
It's turn 3, and you can
turn 3. There's a moment where it's gone one way or the other usually, and as you say, it's usually because one army's just either crocked the other one so much, or there's been a mistake on primary or whatever else. You don't have that sense of this could still come back.
No, which I feel like we used to have that, and I might be rose tinted glasses. I kind of miss 8th edition.
That aspect of it, 100%. I mean, I think I think the game desperately needs a casual pickup version,
casual mode.
Maelstrom of War or whatever else. I think, as you say,
they previewed an open war deck, didn't they, this week? Which I did play. I did have that in 8th, and I played it 2 or 3 times. But I did enjoy it when I did.
No, absolutely. And so I think as we say, we'll see. There's a bunch of new armies now where it's just, I think so. It's from a player perspective, it's maddening having just had a year of trying to, with that internal wrestle of, the army I'm maining is Drakari. They're good. They're also too good. And then you're like, I'll do Harlequins for a bit, and then they get the exact same problem. And then in the meantime, Drakari are now getting absolutely ruined by any of these new books. So you're sort of stuck with it. You can run them if you like, but then you're going to get gunned to shit by Tau. And so you get caught in this place where the meta's moved on. It's extremely frustrating to be stuck in that situation, I think. And for players, as I say, there's players who have been waiting on Chaos Marines or Guard or,
6 days.
For years now, actual years. Who are all stuck in this limbo until those things come, and that's not their fault. That's COVID's fault, I guess. And all the other
like
things.
I'll get back on my soapbox for the Chaos stuff, and I've said I personally think the book should have been and it was meant to have been out by now.
Oh, they all should have been. I think it would all have been the 2-week cycle, wasn't it? I think it was all just going to fly out like it was flying out end of 8th.
I'm expecting that there will be some new releases, and I think that the primary reason why it's not been released is not the book, but is actually the production of those bits and getting them ready to actually sell and capitalize on that.
Yeah.
And I think that's part of my frustration, because if I'm thinking, that book should have been out 6 months ago, it's coming out 6 months out of date.
Yeah.
So it's already outclassed by the books now that are coming out now. It would have come out after it was any, so it's going to have sort of a pre-built-in lag. So it's gonna be not in the position of those books that we've just mentioned, but it'll be more in the maybe the Death Guard Thousand Suns Grey Knights sort of region, rather than actually having any punch. But we'll see. I could be completely wrong, and I hope that I am.
Yeah.
But we'll see. I'm paying red Chaos Space Marines now.
Yeah, you changed the scheme of it. I think red's sensible, just in case World Eaters end up being good as and when they appear. You might want to
inspiration from word bearers.
Yeah. I like the word bearers.
We discussed it the other day, didn't we? What Legion do you not have that you would like? And I thought I'd just repaint some to see if I like painting.
I think word bearers are badass, so that's a nice scheme to base it off. And so in the meantime, we'll persevere, we'll double down, we'll get back at it. I'm definitely.
Sure.
I'm going to rinse down the slight sense of guilt at smashing people in with Harlequins and try the Gene Stealers, because I'm yet to have a game where I felt like there was nothing my opponent could do when I ran Gene Stealer Cults, because they're just not an army quite like that. Every single game, you're like, if I fuck up here, I'm done. That's the end of it. Yeah. So you have to get the steps right. So that precarity is probably even worse with them, but at least that means that it's a tight, interesting game every time.
For sure.
So they'll be out, and we'll see how they get on. And we'll just wait and see what lands with the next Tyranids book and
I'd be excited to see that. And again, they're one of those armies that until Crusher didn't have much going for them. So again, a little bit of time in the sun for them.
I don't begrudge Tyranids time in the sun at all. I think Tyranids being out there would be great. I think
they've had their Chaos Space Marine moments,
and it would be nice to see where Craft Worlds actually land and what Craft Worlds are actually about.
Yeah,
they're a bit of an unknown entity still, even at this stage, and we'll wait and see what the next run of Balance does. Because we've been here before. We had our sort of Drakari, Orc, Admech.
We had it all without Mech and
bleak
Drakari,
time,
yeah.
And so we've been round this loop
Deja vu,
once.
we know
and
it.
it does all eventually even out. But we're just, when you know you're at the start of that loop and you know it takes months, that's always a slightly frustrating time, isn't it?
That's probably why we feel down on it.
Yeah, I think so. Because at the end of the day, we all want to win playing good, interesting, competitive games, and sometimes the meta slips in such a way that doesn't happen. But that's all right. It was a very enjoyable event. We had a good time. We learned a lot, and we're gonna dabble in some AOS. We're gonna try and kick some Crusade off, make some bat reps, all that stuff, and we'll be back. So we'll have to think about what we're going to chat about next time. But we will. We'll be back with a non-event focused one
below
soon.
if you have any questions.
Let us know what you'd like us to talk about. And we'll see if we can get our elusive all 4 hosts in the same place. Holy Grail achieved as well. But yeah, thanks very much for listening, guys. Thanks for putting up with some venting at the end if you're still listening. And we'll see you all again soon. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.